Welcome to Grace. Never heard of her. I'm Gina.
And I'm Maddie. We're two moms, two friends, two overstimulated women navigating motherhood, new identities, and careers, all while challenging society's expectations and redefining what it means to do it all.
Because Grace, well, never heard of her, but word is she's worth getting to know. Hey, everybody, welcome back. We have a pretty intense episode for you today. As you know, one of the things that we've talked about, Maddie and I, of why we started this podcast is we want to have these honest, uncomfortable, and vulnerable conversations. I do want to give a trigger warning that we're going to be talking about some traumatic birth experiences, NICU, C-section, preeclampsia, hemorrhaging. So if that is something that is going to be difficult, I suggest that you skip this episode. Maddie and I are very passionate about bringing these conversations to surface because they are hard to talk about. They are vulnerable, they are emotional. And our goal with this platform is to reach anybody that maybe feels like they're alone and that nobody knows what it could possibly feel like to be in their shoes. And chances are we will never know exactly what it feels like, but we're hoping that by having these conversations and giving you these different perspectives and stories, you may not feel alone. So we are excited to bring on a friend of the pod who just recently had a baby. And so we thought between Maddie and I having babies almost 2+ years ago, it would be a really good opportunity to have somebody who has this fresh perspective that just went through this, who's very much still in the thick of it, so that you're really seeing it from all angles. With that, I am thrilled to introduce Katie Baxendale, our first guest.
Hello. Thank you guys for having me.
We're so excited you're here.
I feel very much like it's a very light foray into returning back to work.
And how lucky are we that you, at 11 weeks postpartum, put yourself together and decided to join us on a podcast. Did Wes give you enough sleep last night?
He did. Our little guy is treating us very well. My son was born August 27th, 2025, and he's my first. His name is Wes Anthony. Wes, my husband, Nate's grandfather, and then Anthony is my dad's middle name. So he's a very special little guy. He's the first grandchild on both sides. So we like to joke that he's not going to understand what it means to be spoiled. Like, he's going to show up to a third grade birthday party and be like, oh, you guys didn't get a car for your birthday? I got a car. He's amazing. He's been such a champ, and we're so excited that he's here.
So, Katie, let's help our listeners get into your headspace right now, because it sounds like Wes is treating you well, but obviously we know there's a lot of things that are kind of under the hood in postpartum that maybe it's not super obvious outside. So, with that being said, a little question for you is if you could describe in 3 words how you're feeling right now, whether that's emotional, physical, just as a whole, what 3 words would you choose?
Love that question. First is in love. I really do feel in love with my son. Yeah, I feel very lucky that my heart, that expression like is truly living outside of my chest. I feel very, very lucky that that I've connected with him. And then second is adjusting. Every day is different. I'm different. He's different. So adjusting constantly is the name of the game. And then the last, more physical feeling, and probably a little bit more mental too, is I feel like I'm floating. And so sometimes floating can be a very light and happy feeling, and I identify with that a lot. But at the same time, floating can also feel like you're grasping to be grounded in routine and be grounded in something that's a lot more concrete. And postpartum is the last thing from concrete. The only thing that's concrete is that you have a human child in front of you. And so I think that floating can be misconstrued as good and bad. It's a all-encompassing feeling mentally, physically, and emotionally. Just kind of like riding the metaphorical wave right now.
I love that you use the word floating, and I love that it has kind of that dual meaning because I think that's probably how I mean, I know from my own experience, a lot of new moms do feel. It's this like, and I feel joy and happiness, and I have anxiety about X, Y, and Z, or I'm struggling to understand or know who I am now that I have this new identity. And so I love that floating just perfectly encapsulates kind of all of those feelings. And I'm assuming too that there's within that word floating, there's this component of anticipation. Like, it's scary. You're grasping, but you might not know what you're grasping for because you don't necessarily know what the future holds. You don't know what it's going to feel like when you go back to work or are kind of splitting your time now between being a mom and bonding and spending every single waking moment with your baby and being this working professional that I know you're also so proud of being as well. When I think back to my own journey as well, like, anticipation was one of the scariest things for me. I just kept anticipating all of these changes, and the changes felt so scary, and it probably has something to do with, like, this need to control everything or feel that you're in control. So I think it's a lot about how can we let go of that control or let go of whatever anticipation and kind of lean in as much as possible to the unknown, which is so scary.
You bring up such a great point, too, because when I think of anticipation, I also think of expectation, right?
Mm.
So, Katie, you've been there for both of my pregnancies. You've been around for Maddie's second pregnancy. You've heard it all, and everything is always different. So, you're hearing these stories from friends, from family, from social media of what quote unquote postpartum is supposed to look like or what birth is supposed to look like. And so I think that has to play such a big factor in anticipation. Like, oh, I'm anticipating this thing that my friend said was going to happen because it happened to her. It's almost hard because as much as you say, I'm going to go into it and just like let it be what it is, and I feel like it's kind of impossible because there's something in the back of your head telling you, well, I think this might happen. We'll see what happens, but like, oh, this is what so and so told me. Katie, I'd love to hear from you. With that being said, whether that's what you thought it was going to be like, what you were told it was going to be like, what you were hoping it was going to be like, and how that potentially was different than the reality.
I could talk for hours about this. And Maddie, you talk about control, and that is the definition of me. I'm the eldest of three daughters, so um, Taylor Swift wrote a song about me. It's very accurate. um,
Mm.
I think that the topic of control is so applicable to both my pregnancy, sorry, even prior to pregnancy, to starting to have a family plan, to pregnancy, to postpartum. So I think that I'll double down and click into that, mainly because it took me a long time to get mentally ready to be a mom. I did not have this magical, open my eyes one day, like, oh, I'm so ready to have a child. I adore kids. I was a babysitter starting when I was like, I think 10 years old, and I've had kids in my life constantly, but I never had this in my bones, like, desire to be a mom. And especially when my husband and I got married back in 2022, we were living this very incredible, just like two best friends doing life together. And in the back of my mind, I was like, why the fuck would I change that? Like, why would I want to change this for the worst? And I don't want to say a pessimist, but more of a realist. And so unfortunately, I was looking at, this thing, my son, I was looking at a potential child as a negative. And so something that really helped me understand that I would never get that feeling of motherhood is for me is that, being ready is not a feeling, it's a choice. And so I would really, really impart that wisdom onto someone who might be like myself saying, is motherhood for me? Because it's not this beautiful like, magical flower moment, and if it is for you, I love that. I'm so happy you had that, but that wasn't like that for me. And then I carried that kind of feeling into pregnancy that I hated being pregnant, and I'm very comfortable saying that now. I was not comfortable saying that while pregnant because it felt like a betrayal to the women who struggled to get pregnant. I was like, what a shitty, woman I am to be like, "This fucking sucks," while women are just, like, desperately clinging to, you know, IVF or, adoption or fostering, and so, that's a theme in my life is, subduing my grief at the expense of others, but pregnancy sucked. I did not like it. I developed, this is a TMI for, our listeners here, but I don't care at this point. I wanna talk about my skin issues. I developed a full body rash throughout pregnancy that would not go away, and it was quite hilarious the second Wes was, cut out of me, the rash stopped. The only cure was to have the baby.
You know what's funny is I was actually thinking about you the other day because I know that the rash, I mean, like, you were very insecure about it, having to choose clothes to cover it, and, I mean, it was something that, as a friend, I'm like, "Oh my god, I don't even notice, you're so beautiful," but I know how much that weighed on you, so, I was thinking about you the other day, being like, "I haven't heard about it, I wonder." I assumed it went away, but that's funny that it was literally after Wes was taken out of your body. He was like, "And I will take the rash with me."
I will take the rash. I will rid all the world of the bad things. That's very much Wes's vibe. But you bring up such a good point, Gina, is like, you're already so vulnerable in pregnancy, right? You have people looking at you different, you have people talking to you differently. And then I was pregnant in the summer. And so you can't be in a sweater covering your full body rash in the summertime.
Yeah, and it was hot.
It was hot. It felt like a joke, and my sweet, sweet dermatologist, the one medical professional that I truly do trust in this world, she was so kind because that's the other thing in pregnancy, you can't use a lot of, like, ingredients, right, because you're pregnant. So, anyway, I
Yeah.
digress. The rash is no longer. RIP to the rash, never again.
I'm laughing because Wes and Parker have very similar, they're both September baby or, well, August 27th and September. So
Close enough.
what point I'm trying to make, you guys were at the end of the pregnancy at the same time, and I just remember watching you both struggle in the heat, and I just felt so bad. I remember when Katie first told me she was pregnant, she goes, "This is so great. I'm gonna be, like, so pregnant in summer. I can wear sundresses, and isn't this great?" And I go, Katie, I don't know how to tell you this."
I was wrong.
I go, "You're gonna be really hot all the time, and it's gonna be a struggle, but
You don't know what you don't know.
you did great."
Thank you. Such a theme.
You're
Such a
right. And listen, I appreciate the optimism, right? Like, that's what we have to go into it thinking for the best. But one other thing that you touched on that I think actually is a really important thing to talk about is that feeling of guilt, or I love how you said it, betrayal to women who want the thing that you have. And I think that could be a theme that we're going to talk about through a lot of things during this episode because it's a mental struggle to be able to have the feelings you have, right? You got pregnant, and to not enjoy it feels like you're doing something wrong. Feels like you're a bad person because there's so many women who want that. And it's heartbreaking. I think about all the time how unfair pregnancy and fertility and all of that is entirely, like why some women it can happen for, some women go through such hardship and some women don't ever get it. Like, that to me is heartbreaking. And something Maddie has said in our previous episodes is, and, right? You are so happy to be pregnant and to bring this child into the world, and you hate how it feels. You hate what it's doing to your body. And you feel for the women who don't get to experience this if they so badly want it. Like, there are multiple emotions that you can sit with. And I think that's just something that's really easy to say. It's difficult to do, speaking for myself. So I really just I appreciate that. I appreciate that you brought that up of, "No, I it sucked." Like, everyone was like, "It's supposed to be beautiful," and I hated it, and I'm so sorry. I hated it, and I felt like I couldn't say that. So, again, as we think about these conversations that are just really hard to talk about, that was a really important thing to hit on.
I think it captures it perfectly. I mean, I can relate because with my second pregnancy with Parker, I felt so lucky that I was able to get pregnant and fairly quickly as well. And I think there was so much fear and anxiety around my pregnancy with Parker, and I did feel like it wasn't fair that then I had all of these extra appointments I had to go to. I had to get a procedure done to hopefully stay pregnant this time around. I had to mentally do so much work ahead of getting pregnant to just feel like I was in a good headspace. And then eg to that same point, like, I feel like I hit kind of a point in my pregnancy, and I was like, "I am so over this." And I think it's a weird feeling because when I had Zoe at, what, 6.5 months, I grieved the loss of, what, almost 4 months worth of pregnancy, that I didn't get this big old belly, that I didn't have this feeling of just I am going to bring a potential healthy baby into the world, or I get to feel what it feels like to be a pregnant woman. And so I feel like for me, yeah, I had a lot of shame and guilt around, well, I was I really pregnant? Like, it wasn't the same as what other people felt. I didn't make it to full term. And so when I had Parker, it was this weird feeling of just, I had a goal. I was like, I so badly want to make it to 37 weeks. And then I hit that. And I was like, get this mother effing baby out of me. And it was miserable. And so I just totally agree that it's an and I think pregnancy in general is just mentally and physically hard, and everybody experiences something differently, and it shouldn't be shameful to talk about exactly how you feel, or you have the right to express exactly how you felt in those moments.
That's what it is. I love that. You have the right. You shouldn't have to silence yourself because unfortunately somebody else had a worse or is grieving the experience that you have. Two things can exist at the same time. What is so fascinating, I don't even know if that's the right word. Is it horrifying is maybe the better word of pregnancy is that when you think of the finish line, it's not a finish line. It's okay, I'm crossing this milestone, I'm having this baby, and I'm starting a marathon again, but I just didn't get to rest in between. And that to me is just what's so mind-blowing as women. We carry a child for 9 months, and then it's like, "Whew, all right, like, let's just get this baby out of me." Wait, no, that's, chapter 2, baby. We're not closing the book yet. So, Katie, go back to what you were saying leading up to your pregnancy, what started developing, and then into your postpartum experience.
So from the most part, and this is something else kind of just on the topic of pregnancy, I had a relatively easy pregnancy. Like, I worked out up until probably, like, 30 weeks. Like, that was something that was really important to me. My lactose intolerance went away, so I really did not expect what 36 weeks kind of, like, brought to me. Or maybe it was 32, I don't remember. It was in the last trimester. I developed preeclampsia, um, which if you, are unfamiliar, or if that's triggering for you, you can stop listening right now. Preeclampsia is like the boogeyman of pregnancy, because no one knows what causes it. You can have it if you're old, you can have it if you're young, you can have it if you're blue, if you're red, if you're like, it's truly just like a luck of the draw. Rather, it's not lucky, but, it is high blood pressure, swelling, high liver enzymes, and then protein in the urine. And then it can also be a precursor to something far more serious called HELP syndrome, which is essentially you hemorrhage into when you're delivering vaginally, not cesareanly, which is how Wes was born. He was born via cesarean. So when the preeclampsia came up, my doctor treated it very seriously, but not anything to cause alarm. And so, when you're doing this for the first time, you're looking to your doctor for cues, right? You're looking to your doctor to be like, are you nervous? Is this super common? Like that was a question I was always asking in the OBGYN office. I was like, is this common? Am I normal? Because that's all I wanted was a normal pregnancy and a normal birth, quote unquote normal. Nothing's normal. We were watching the preeclampsia because my blood pressure had gotten high one day. And then essentially, it was just because I was moving around a lot. Like when you're pregnant and you're moving, like your blood pressure goes high because you're very exhausted. And then they did a blood panel and they found those other two signs. They found the protein in my urine and they found the high liver enzymes. And so they're like, okay, we're going to watch you and you're going to come back for an NST, non-stress test, which every time I took a non-stress test, Wes was happy. He loved the womb, so much so that he did not want to come out. He was very comfortable. And that was always my gut. Like the thing that kept me calm was knowing that he was comfortable. I was like, I don't care if my blood pressure is high, like whatever, as long as he's happy. And so in a very kind of whirlwind of the end of my pregnancy, like I was working the day I gave birth. Like I was physically online, and that was never the plan. I'm not I put that corporate Katie long ago. Like that is not who I am today. But I was doing an email report for something and I messaged my boss and I said I got a call from my doctor that they need to induce me today. And that was the first scary moment of like, oh, this is not the way I wanted this to happen. And so thankfully we had our go bags packed and then, going in for an induction, intending to deliver vaginally, it was that anticipation like you talked about, Maddie. It was like, okay, this is anxiety, but it's kind of the good anxiety. And I really, really am excited to meet my son. And unfortunately, after 36 hours of trying to dilate, my body and Wes's body were not tolerating the Pitocin in any way, shape, or form. And it was at that point I really felt betrayed that no one had seen me as a first-time mom, and I should say resentment towards medical professionals, right? Seeing me as a first-time mom and said, like, "I understand that you want to get this baby out safely as in any way, shape, or form." I was open to a C-section. I was open to delivering vaginally. The only thing I was non-negotiable was my epidural. I was like, "Give it to me. Like, I want it. Give it to me now." Um, and once they saw that in me, I wish someone would have said, "I love that for you, but let's talk about all of our options. Let's dig into what a cesarean looks like and how you can expect it to go." Because I remember laying down in bed. They always say, like, when you're alone in the hospital and no one's attending to you, you're fine. The second you start seeing the doctor roll in more often, that's when you're like, something's not going right. I really started to get scared once my body started like uncontrollably shaking, like Pitocin, something that no one told me, no medical professional told me that Pitocin can really like, because it's so much hormones going through your body, you can have intense like shakes. And so once that started happening, I remember it was the first time I like cried to my husband, Nate, and I just was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this is no longer that anticipation. It's more of fear. Nate is doing amazing in that moment, but I can also tell that he can't make the decision for me. I have to make the decision to have a C-section. And that's what I think is so wild about birth is that you have to that's your first selfless act as a mom is to be like, I am so scared right now, and you are coming to me in my one of my worst moments and being like, "So do you want it?" And I'm like, "Of course I want it. I need to get this baby out, but like I'm not going to be excited about it. I'm not going to be excited about laying on the table awake." When I imagined this beautiful, like, legs splayed, sun comes out, lays on my chest, very harmonious moment. So yeah, it was incredibly scary. It was incredibly incredibly scary, and I think part of my brain has protected me. I think it's padded that a little bit away in the back of my brain right now because it was so traumatic.
And I think too, y you're grieving, right? So not only are you afraid, but it's all happening real time. Like, I'm thinking of a scenario where there's a breech baby and you know you're having a scheduled C-section. And yes, like, still, grief, but there's time to grieve. So you're on the bed, you're scared, and now you're grieving what you said was this birth experience that you are no longer gonna have. And I know Maddie, I I imagine, experienced something very similar when you're in the hospital at 24 weeks, grieving not only the birth experience, but the entire 3rd trimester of your pregnancy. I mean, talk about layered. It's a lot of shit to go through, and I just hope you both know, as someone who was very fortunate and didn't have, any really complications in my pregnancy, hearing both of your stories, I just want you both to know how much I respect and just truly admire your your courage and your ability just to push through. You are both such incredible moms, and thank you for just being vulnerable and honest about this because I know it's probably hard to talk about.
We could probably do an entire episode around all of this, but first, just want to say, Katie, thank you for sharing your birth story because I know how difficult it can be to kind of relive that experience and just kind of reprocess all of the emotions that you were feeling. Yes, I can just 100% relate because I felt very similar when I was in the hospital with Zoe. They just pumped me full of medicine. I was pumped full of medicine daily until I delivered her. And so I felt sick. Like I didn't feel like myself. And so I did get to the point where I was like, get this baby out of me. I don't want to do this anymore as well. And what a weird thing to think when you're 24 weeks and 3 days pregnant that you're like, it felt selfish. I felt very selfish going into motherhood because I was like, I don't feel like myself. I don't feel good. I need this baby out. And knowing the statistics and knowing what was going to come when this baby did come out, it was a very, yeah, surreal, weird, shameful thing to go through. And I can 100% resonate with the harmonious kind of experience of getting to hold your baby because, again, Parker was supposed to be my redemption baby. Like, I'm going to have this beautiful pregnancy, I'm going to make it to term. We are going to have that moment. And unfortunately, when Parker was born, he started turning blue. And so they put him on my chest and then they immediately took him off and they started working on him. And they said the words, "We're calling the NICU." And my heart just sank because I had worked I think I thought in my head, if I can make it to term, I'm going to have a healthy baby. And so I don't think it crossed my mind that I can still go to 39 weeks in one day and have a baby that's going to need extra support. And I think more people just need to talk about the realities, but it does. It feels like something was stolen from you. Like you're supposed to have this magical, connection and bonding moment with your baby, and it can turn so scary and just feel so unfair. And I think I felt that for so long. I just felt like this is so unfair. And I think now that I'm further away from it and have processed through a lot of that, there's so many moments since then that have just been so joyful or just I've felt so connected to him that was like a little blip in his life now that we're like 2.5 years past that. But yeah, you're 100% right. It's not fair, and so many women's birth stories aren't fair, and the aftermath of kind of what comes, it's just it's heartbreaking. That there's so many women who don't get to experience what everybody hopes and wishes for, and then I think social media exacerbates that, because you see these women, and I remember for the longest time, I'd scroll through Instagram, they'd put the date they had their baby, and they'd be at home with their baby, and I was like, "What I would give to be at home or to room in with my baby after I gave birth." I didn't get to do that with either pregnancy. It sucks.
Maddie, I feel like I'm gonna cry, so just bear with me. This is not about me at all. However, I remember getting that text message from you that Parker was in the NICU, and I looked at Chris and I'm like, "What the fuck?" Because I know how hard you worked for that healthy pregnancy, and, what I'm trying to highlight is just, like, I was there rooting with you, like, you made it to 39 weeks, I couldn't wait for you to experience what you had worked so hard to experience, and so, yeah, it was really unfair, and it's hard to watch as someone that loves you guys, you know, and similar to you, Katie, I don't know if I ever told you this, but I remember crying to Debbie being like, "That's not how it was supposed to be. It's just not how it was supposed to be. They didn't deserve it. They were supposed to have this experience that I had that was a beautiful experience." And I think part of the emotion that I'm feeling is guilt, is that why did I get it, but they didn't? And um, I say that because what I wanna ask you both is, what's the advice that you have for friend, family, partner, how to support in that moment, whether that's supporting you or supporting your family? What does that look like?
It's such a loaded question, and it's not that it's a bad loaded question, it's just that it's multifaceted. So I think I'll take it from the perspective of being a woman who hemorrhaged, right? It was 4 AM the night 4 AM the day after I'd given birth, and the very sweet resident came in, and that's the joke is, like, you don't get sleep at all when you're in the hospital because you have every 4 hours, you have to get medicine, they have to check on the baby, they have to push on your stomach, one of the worst pains ever. Um, it's, like, worse than
Like,
childbirth.
add it to the tab, honestly, of the
Just
shit
truly.
we have to do.
And, he comes in at 4 AM, and I am still loopy from meds, and he leans over my bed, and he goes, "Just letting you know you hemorrhaged." And I was like, "And what am I supposed to do with that?" Like, thank you, like, are you also gonna tell me that the sky is like, it was he said it as if it was just so natural that came out of his mouth, so I had a very hard physical, 5 days in the hospital, and so support from, like, a partner perspective is genuinely, like, you need them physically to stand, to bend over, to get the baby to so that you can breastfeed. So, I mean, Nate was incredible, as a man who operates horribly on no sleep. I don't know how he did it because he was just the kindest, most gentlest person, and so I really, express that to partners, however they show up, whether that's a romantic partner, a friend partner, for a woman who's given birth cesareanly, like, having a physical person to help you just, like, around is incredible, but at the same time too, I hated when people treated me like a science experiment. Like, I hated when people would just kind of watch to see what I would do. You almost have to act and then ask later. I loved when my mom would not even ask me what I wanted. She would just show up with a plate of food, and it was like, uh, uh, that's exactly what you need in that moment. One of the expressions I loved was like, you don't ask a postpartum woman what they want on their burger. You just ask them, like, cheese or no cheese. And it's the easiest way to support a postpartum woman because they can't make one more decision, and they shouldn't have to. Um, and I loved what that my people showed up. You showed up, Gina, at the hospital, and I know where your emotion comes from because, when you walked into the hospital room, uh, you were the first person to meet Wes, now that I think about it. I think
Wow.
you might have just beaten my parents, but either way, you're his godparent, so, very important person. But I remember seeing you and you seeing me and the flood of emotion because I knew that you were gonna be that person for me, like, without question, and it was amazing, and it was is exactly what I needed in that moment.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear that and that I could be that, and I think that's really good. That's a really good perspective of kind of, like, the physical support. Maddie, you had an entirely different type of traumatic birth and that your baby was in the NICU for 4.5 months. What does support look like for you?
Yeah, it's a good question because I actually appreciate that people will reach out to me now when friends or family members have babies in the NICU and ask me how they can support them, which to me is like, I applaud and appreciate women or anyone who's reaching out asking how best to support somebody through such a challenging time and experience. Like, bravo to you for being so kind of self-aware on that. I know, Gina, you've done that to me as well, which I love that you're so thoughtful about because I think I would 100% echo what you said, Katie. Like, just do not ask because I agree. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I needed. I wish more people had just done or acted or reached out or whatever it was because I think for my experience with Zoe, we were also the first grandchild on both sides. I was the first of my friend group to have a baby. So I really didn't have other moms in my corner at all reaching out. So it was, friends and family members who didn't really know what to say or what to ask or what to do. And I think for a long time, I was kind of resentful towards them that they I just kept saying, like, nobody's giving me what I want or need. But in all fairness, like, nobody knew what I wanted or needed, and I probably didn't even know what I wanted or needed. So I think the things that stuck out to me were friends or family members who weren't afraid to just kind of reach out or check in. And it wasn't to ask questions because I think that's one thing I would caution against. Like, don't ask someone who has a baby in the NICU or who potentially had a traumatic birth. Like, don't ask them how they're feeling or what happened or what's going on. Like, just say that you're thinking of them. And then that opens the door to I feel supported and the ball's in my court with how much information I have the capacity to give or that I want to kind of provide to them. It's more just, yes, like being present and being there for someone without asking for anything in return is probably the most helpful thing someone can do. And then outside of that, I don't think people realize when you do have a long stay at the NICU, or even when it's a short stay at the NICU, you get discharged from the hospital and you have to then go essentially live at the hospital to see your baby. And so I think some really unique and just super helpful things people did for us was um, when I was still at the hospital, and it was during COVID, mind you, so Tyler, like, wasn't allowed to stay with me.
Oh my
Awful,
God.
awful. Yes, before I gave birth to Zoe, I had a roommate, so it was another
Oh,
pregnant woman in the room with me on this
No.
antepartum floor, and Tyler couldn't stay with me. It was
No.
the worst, the worst.
What?
that's
Yes.
hell. That's what I
The
think hell looks like.
we
No,
were
like,
we were still
legitimately.
wearing masks in
Oh
the
my
hospital.
okay.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it
I'm
was
getting like PTSD.
No,
it was
legitimately.
awful. So anyway, one friend was so kind and they got Tyler like a hotel room next to the hospital so that he could stay close cuz we obviously weren't near our home. We were
Right.
in Massachusetts. So I think that that's like a grand gesture. Like I would not expect anyone to do that, but that was just so kind of like just the closeness or just being able to be near each other. And then I think some other things that were super helpful were like a hospital cafe gift card or something along those lines, because you literally are eating at the hospital for like every meal that you're there. I think, yeah, meals can be helpful as well. But just I, looking back, craved connection with people. And I think people were afraid because they didn't know what to say. So nobody said anything at all. And I think that's where it can feel so isolating and you already felt alone and now everybody kind of is like treating you as this, I don't want to say like pity project by any means, but like they don't know what to do.
The pity is something that, I mean, I think all of us as 3 very strong, independent women, when someone looks at you with pity in their eyes, or it would always be like they were walking on eggshells around me. I hated that. It almost, talk about the feelings of postpartum. Rage is one that always would come up when I felt that someone was pitying me. And then I think the difference for me, it was like no one knew what had happened to me, so I almost, like, wanted to shout it from the rooftops. I'm like, "I
Yeah.
hemorrhaged, and he came out my sunroof." Like, I was so eager to tell people, and I think both are fully valid. You being like, "Don't talk to me about the NICU. I know you see Zoe in the NICU, don't talk to me about it," versus, like, wanting to talk about it, and that is, like, the "and" of postpartum.
Yeah. Well, that was a lot. That was heavy, heavy topics and conversation. And also just want to say thank you to both of you for sharing and being so supportive and being the women that we want all women to be for other women going through these experiences. So I think, we are definitely having those hard conversations, which I love. That being said, we would like to continue this conversation. I think there's still more that we want to dig into and cover, like advocating through yourself through pregnancy, what that looks like pre, during, postpartum, what some of our doctor relationships, either good, bad, ugly, looked like. I think feeding journeys, and know that we've all been on different feeding journeys and have unique perspectives to share there. And while maybe we gave some advice to women on today's episode, I think there's more advice we'd like to give to women who are about to embark on this journey or are recently postpartum that we can impart and share with all of you. So I hope you all tune in to part 2 of this episode where we have a lot more to cover. Thanks for joining. And that concludes your free therapy session, brought to you by 2 people with lots of opinions and 0 certifications. Don't forget to bill your insurance, emotionally or otherwise. And be sure to follow us on Instagram at GraceWhoPod. That's Grace, WHO Pod.
Tune in next time for another deep dive into something we'll probably overthink and under-resolve. And while our search for grace continues, let's at least try to find a little joy in between.